Hello, welcome to Waiting for Game, podcast presented by Melee Stats. I'm your host, Gimme Dat Wheat. I'm here with my good friend Edwin Budding. Edwin, normally I think there's a little ramp up and I make some sardonic remark about you, but this week I'm just going to call you my good friend. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. I think we've had a pretty exciting week of Melee. We have a lot more coming up, kind of in the lead in to Genesis in April. I think that the scene is kind of in a really interesting place, and I'm really happy that we have Brandon to join us tonight to recap the last weekend and talk about a lot of really, if not cool, interesting developments for the scene. Brandon, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing incredible.
Solid.
I'm doing great. Now, Brandon, this is unfortunate how this lined up is that this is the 1st of March.
Yeah,
just
so
uh just how the calendar works.
it's all
But
good.
but yeah, I mean, obviously, with that being said, we did see a pretty amazing event that you put on. I'm gonna
Thank you.
kind of like show what goes on behind the scenes, and I'm gonna say that you create a little group chat to run this idea by some people. I was lucky
Yeah,
enough to be involved. Edwin
yeah,
somehow got involved. I thought you were crazy. I'm just gonna say it. Your idea for the second edition of the of bemi Black Empowerment Melee Invitational.
mhm.
Um, your idea, I thought it was insane, but we're here, we're after it. It ran great. So like, why don't you talk to us about this? Because Bemi number one ran last February 2021.
You're right.
Um, I think it was successful. I don't know if you felt the same way, but obviously successful enough to run number two. But yeah, like run me through what was going through your head when you created this.
Like just Bimmy in general, or like the the difference between the first one and the second one.
Let's just talk about Bemi in general first, and then
Oh,
we'll get
okay.
into like where this second one came from.
Um, my main premise was like, I mean, obviously Black History Month, right? Something for Black people done by a Black person. That's like the basic thing. Um, I think the bigger reason, and I've said this before. My biggest premise was to just not have it be based off like an event based off of tragedies. Like
Mhm.
for example, when we all got together during like the George Floyd situation, and we raised money. Shouts to Ryle B and everybody involved in that, and that's great, right? But I guess what bothered me, and this isn't even uh it's not like a stab at the community. It's more just like a stain in society at its whole. Is when somebody Black gets killed, everyone, all groups feel bad and thus want to come together after something like that happens. And I don't know, being Black, I feel like we shouldn't always have to acknowledge Blackness when people get killed. Um, Not to say that you shouldn't ignore it, because I don't think that, like, I'm not on that pretend it doesn't exist and then it'll go away. But you definitely just, like, it shouldn't always be like, let's get together when someone, you know, gets murdered or unjustly killed or whatever. I just feel like we should be able to come and celebrate Blackness just as much as people do to fight against the causes that, like, make, I don't know, like, systemic racism a thing.
Mhm.
I also feel like, just with Black Americans, we should have like something to be able to celebrate and not have to, not be premised off of somebody dying or getting hurt or losing everything or just something negative. Uh, it just triggered me, I guess, and then that's like the main reason why I did the event. Like that was my main motivation, to have something that we could celebrate, and all of us be able to celebrate while everyone's here. It shouldn't take someone dying for it
Mhm.
to. But yeah, that was my, like, biggest premise. I don't know if you want me to talk about like the difference between the first one and the second one, or like why I chose the format for the second one. But I can get into that if you guys want.
Yeah, Edwin,
I
what do you think, Edwin?
Yeah, I think that seems like a pretty good jumping off point. When did you start planning the second one, and sort of what was the process into reaching out to players and organizing it, and like what were the lessons you learned from the first event that carried over into this one?
So I answer that last question. The first one I realized, so the first one I did 32 people, round robin, right? Uh, eight or four pools of eight. Those four going to a top 16. And it's a bracket, right? Uh, it ended up going great as far as like the end result. But what I realized was it was like way less structured. So people would drop out. Like that happens a lot. That happened this one too. It's probably gonna happen the next one. And because of that, it like the first one, it just threw me off balance. It really fucked me up. So I'd have to find people last second and do like a bunch of things scrambling. And so what made me change the format to an open bracket for the second one was should someone drop out, which that ended up happening, I could take people from the open bracket and put them into the main bracket without it being like without compromising the event. Uh, so that was like my biggest like reason why I wanted all these stages, and then also like with the gauntlet and all that, I like the idea of like through every stage of bemi this tournament, people got eliminated. So there was like four different stages: open bracket, round robin, gauntlet, and just the normal bracket.
The final
Yeah,
bracket.
yeah, yeah. And every stage, people got eliminated, and it made it easier because each phase I got to, it was just less and less people. And like I said, if someone dropped out, especially the open bracket, if someone dropped out in the open bracket, it really didn't matter because it's an open bracket. So whoever drops out just drops out. And then if someone from the main bracket, like when Axe couldn't make it, I was like, all right, King Momo's like the highest seed in the open bracket. Just move him over. It made it seamless for me. So it was a lot easier to like uh just
Yeah,
go.
I mean, even not even talking just logistically. I think like events like Summon and stuff, which I mean, I'm not a expert, but I think that was the first one to run the gauntlet type thing.
Mhm.
They're really experts in finding out what like gives something stakes, and I think
Right.
that even though this is an event that it's obviously I don't want to say it's not competitive. I think it's more than competitive, right? The
Yeah.
competitive aspect is a big part of it, of course. That's why we're going to be talking about Billy Bo Peep and everything and stuff like that. We're going to be talking about these sets because these sets really did count.
Right.
Um, but I think it also extended further than that. But yeah, it's just like events like this. You always have to find out a way to make every single player care because we've seen a lot of people get in spots where they realize they might not make it or something like that, and or
Mhm.
just they like DQ from a round robin. I think we did see an instance of this, but yeah, it's
Mhm.
just I think it's a really good way of making sure every set we see counts because a lot of times we'll see events like this where you're watching a set, it's like a 20-minute set, and going into it that this has no bearing on what happens. So I think that
Right.
having eliminations throughout is a really cool way of doing that.
Right. Also, I wanted to point out what I was happy about. There was only one rematch
Yeah.
the entire tournament. And that was real thing in Billy Bo Peep. I think aside from that, there was not a single rematch in this entire tournament. No one played someone twice except for those two, which I was
Which
like
is
pretty proud of.
insane to have
Yeah.
that many like levels, like that many like rounds and just like ways that you can run a bracket and have that
Mhm.
happen. One thing I also loved about the open bracket is that in this online age, there's a lot of players who pop up and we don't really know anything about them, right?
Right.
So I know you were telling me you were like, you didn't know Typhoon was black. I was like, I didn't know. It's
Right.
like
Right.
it is cool to um, have some level of familiarity with these players beyond just like, oh, I know they're a Marth, right? Because even
Right.
like even when there used to be tournaments that you just like see on Challenge or something, you just be like, okay, well, I know like they're I know they're a Sheik from Kansas or whatever. Uh, but even then, like because of online, because of rollback,
Mm-hmm.
we're lucky enough to be gifted with this thing where like they're not even connected to regions. So I think it
Right.
was really cool to see players who we haven't seen really pop off in person and get to like have a sort of deeper connection to who they are.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And like I think for me what I liked was like you have players like Typhoon who enters like pretty much everything online, right?
Mhm.
Then you had players like Billy who never enter online, right? Um so
Last online thing I think was last Bemi.
right. So I mean I like that like contrast. It added like a element of surprise that I didn't really know what to expect. Like how are these people who enter net play tournaments like you would think that okay, Typhoon would just wash everybody because he's active, right? But little do you know, like all these players, just because they're not competing per se on online events or even in person, they're still grinding, you know. And that's what really like made me like real. I think this tournament really put that on for me. Like watching how much better King Momo had got from the last Bimmy because he wasn't really
Mhm.
playing. Obviously, real thing people know about him, but then people like Prometheus, who like I didn't know Prometheus was at where he's at, and he was like insane. Like it's so many players that uh like just seeing a mix of like active versus inactive as far as tournaments really like added a new level to it to me. So
I
you
mean,
don't
you
know
look
what to
at
expect.
yeah, you look at top 6, I literally think the only person in top 6 who actually enters net play on the regular is Salt.
Right.
Billy, no. Flash, not no.
Yeah.
Shroom, no. Real things sometimes, but not really. And then you mentioned King Momo, who's like not
Right.
really entering stuff. So yeah, it's in the online era, we are really lucky to see all these people pop up. But it is
Mm,
kind of there's moments where you're like, well, these players are super cool, but I wonder what would it look like if blank popped up. And
mm.
this was an event where I think we got a lot of people like that. Edwin, I know you have some thoughts on it. You wrote your Monday morning mark on some of Bemi. What do you
Yeah,
think?
I think that it's just so great to see a lot of Billy is the obvious name for someone who we know is extremely talented, just a very solid player, great to watch and everything. But I think even just the fact that you could have a match like Typhoon versus or that that you could have a tournament with Typhoon and DAOS at the same
Yeah.
event
Right.
playing for high stakes. It's
Right.
just the level of one of my favorite things about these kinds of events is just that like you get to see a lot of active players take on players from like not just previous generations but players who are good and have a chance to still prove that
Mhm.
they're really good. It's always the last 2 years that this event has happened. I've always Billy is the biggest example of this, but I've always been impressed at the level of depth brought to it and the level of like people's melee's journeys are also different, but they still converge in this
Right.
one event, especially when they all share something with each other that's not necessarily talked about openly
Right.
in the rest of the
Right.
scene.
Right. Yeah, no, it was cool to see. You got people like Wes who like put the groundworks in, has been playing. And then the thing about Wes is Wes was still solid. It wasn't like, Wes was still qualified out to the main bracket, right? Like
Yeah.
um yeah, and then you see that and you see like players like Cadenville who is like very like newer. Every time he like his pool was over, he's like, all right, I'm going to the local, and then leaves. And like, you know, and like Cadenville beat West, beat Daryl. It's like really good up and coming player. But the fact that somebody like Cadenville could play West, like West probably has been playing Caden's whole life, like
Yeah.
literally, and like to me that's like crazy, it's kind of just cool to see, I guess. But I'm happy about how it went.
Was Caden the one who he was the one who was entering at his like land local, right? They had like a
Yeah.
slippy set up. That's insane.
Yeah. So he was doing like both at the same time. He did that in the open bracket, and then for the like the actual tournament after his like gauntlet and all that, he just left to go play in the local and then won his local. Yeah. He's from Oklahoma. I advise. I feel like I wouldn't be surprised if like Caden gets like top 100 or something within like the next year or so. Maybe the same with him and Brass Monkey too.
Brass Monkey, yeah.
Brad Monkey's
That
hella
guys are really
solid.
good. Both those two are like I didn't even know how good they were until then. Like Prometheus, that dude is ridiculous. I don't know if you
I mean,
guys watch Prometheus.
it's events like these that really, like, this is a competitive event, like I said before, but it's just like it throws a spin on it enough where you're able to see people who are really, really good, but you might not normally see. It's like all those Smash World Tour events, right? We saw
Mhm.
really good players who, if you throw them into like the biggest tourneys of the year, might get put in, they might get 49th or 65th. You know, they might get these spots that people don't look at.
Mhm.
Um, but when you give them like these specialized brackets or just different forms of tournament experience,
Mhm.
yeah, you get to see these people. I think Prom's super good. I didn't expect this
Mhm.
to happen, but
Right.
I think that's amazing that it did, because like the performance he had here, I think gets him known. And if he does the same performance at Genesis or something, that might end up with like 65th or something. People might not talk the same way. Yeah, I think that this was definitely super cool. Do you
Mhm.
want to talk about Billy? Because I think that like he
Yeah.
Billy is someone who, and maybe this is a project that we need to do. Maybe this is Melee Stats next thing. I think if you asked like, whatever, 50 people who follow Melee how good
Mhm.
Billy is, and if you
Mhm.
asked 50 top players how good he is, I think he's like the biggest difference, because
Mhm.
players who play the game, you're like, your drug foxes or whatever, your fictions, I think they
Mhm.
really have a respect for Billy.
Mhm.
But he just doesn't enter. Like he's
Yeah.
a it's not he's not he might be an underranked guy. I don't know what he is, but he's just like, I know he grinds specific things. He does he gets the lessons and he like plays other top players, but in terms of entering like just a local or whatever, that's not really his style. So it's really cool to see him just like he entered Bemi last year. That was something we didn't see him.
Mhm.
uh he did well at Smash World Tour qualifier, but like doing well at that qualifier also means not taking a set. That's just like how the qualifier
Yeah,
is.
that was a brutal tournament. Yeah, that tournament stuff.
But yeah, let's get into him, because I think that he's a player who's like constantly pretty under the radar just because he doesn't
Mhm.
enter. But
Mhm.
he comes up to this. Anok, Edwin, I want to let you speak, because the other day we were watching, you were watching this, and you sent like a DM, or you sent a message, and you were like, Ambi, I thought Billy was good versus Falco. What's happening?
Yeah,
I think you
so
got your answer to that at the end of the tournament, didn't you?
yeah, Brandon, I don't know if you saw, but I did a whole preview of the of Bemi,
Mhm.
and Billy was my pick to win the tournament, like
Oh,
a week
okay. Good
before it
shit.
happened.
You
And
got it.
I don't have the column in front of me right now, but I
Mhm.
wrote something along the lines of, Billy doesn't enter that much. He was just outside the top 50 in 2019, the year he was active. But like,
Mhm.
if you were paying attention to results at the end of the year, let alone just like watching him play, like the pieces were all there. This was
Mhm.
someone whose stock was like clearly all the way on the upswing. Like this was someone who genuinely seemed like he was like one of the most promising, like talented Fox players or just players in the scene, let
Mhm.
alone. So the funny thing is, like, I took a look at where Billy was trending in terms of like what he had given, and he was actually like he was a bit more active than I thought in the pre-rollback days.
Mhm.
Funny enough, he kind of showed up for like a brief stretch of time between like late 2020 and the
Mhm.
first Black Empowerment Melee Invitational,
Mhm.
where he did pretty well. He won like a event over Fat Goku and Null
Mhm.
online, and ever since then, I just always been thinking like, my God, like Billy is so good. Like this guy was like literally trending like higher than top 50. If
Mhm.
you just look at like a short span of results, and he just disappeared. Then he
Mhm.
came back for the Smash World Tour, and like his pool is really hard. Like that doesn't tell you anything about someone. Like, oh, they lost to Face Roll, Meds, and Plup, and like
Yeah.
Kai. Like
Right.
what? Like those
Right.
guys are
I think
all.
I think a lot of
Yeah.
people could lose to those three
Right.
people.
Yeah, like that's
Right.
like if that's Billy at his quote unquote worst, like I want to see him again, right?
Mhm.
So just heading into this event, I loved his chances against the field. I think his fox is so beautiful. Like
Yeah,
it's
it's
really
really amazing.
magical to watch when it's on point. Like in a way that I frankly feel like, you know, people make this comparison all the time, like with their favorite fox players, but I truly think that Billy's potential, his knowledge of the game and his approach to it, like, is so smart. It feels the same way as like when I used to watch like Crush and Drug Fox before their respective breakouts. And
Mhm.
I gotta I need more of Billy. I need Billy at tournaments. And part of why I need him at tournaments is because like he sure did win me so much side betting
Oh
money.
God,
Uh, uh,
I knew you were gonna bring
Billy
It
this
is
up.
definitely
the
did.
yeah.
Billy, you know what's funny about the tournament? For top 12, he was the first set to open. Him and Question. They started the event on Sunday, and then he closed. He played for like 4 or 5 hours straight. I just don't. I think what's more impressive isn't that to me. Him winning isn't to me the most impressive part. I'm not really surprised that Billy won just because of how good. I like, you know, just like you, and like, you know, how good Billy is. I'm more surprised at how he did it.
Mhm.
That like
So much
that is
stamina.
yeah. The fact that he like not only was playing good, but for that long. He was playing good for like 4 hours. Like that is crazy. Most people, I'm like, okay, he'll probably get to Flash, and here's where it's over. He'll win the first set, get bodied the second set, and it just like, nah. He was like, I felt like as each set went, he got better. That was the crazy part. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about him as a player who doesn't enter tournaments that often, but obviously plays, and that's like something that's completely different, right? That's a different skill set because you can be really good at the game in a friendly scenario,
Mhm.
um, but there's this like third, like this outside part of skill where it's like you have to be very good for a long time, right? It's what we'd always talk about
Mhm.
Armada's like C game or whatever was amazing. And a lot of times when you get players that you might be getting C game at a tournament because you just had to play for so long. So that, yeah, you're right. That's a surprising thing about Billy because we know that he's skill wise, he's got it. Especially Flash as an opponent. Flash very willing to, like, if you make a mistake, very willing to capitalize on that just because of the Flash's play style.
Oh my
I
god,
want
he
to,
did that to Flash. Like
yeah,
that's
this is
not
crazy.
Yeah.
I let's talk about I want to talk about Billy and Flash because I know Brandon, you are someone who obviously very good at both characters. Billy to me, actually both of them to me, um, we talk about on this podcast sometimes, but like they both show me that they are just like overall solid.
Mhm.
You sometimes get players who like they'll rise up really quickly in the ranks because they're very good at like the Fox matchup or something, right? They've got their
Mhm.
specialty matchup. Um, and then it's like the case of can they let the other matchups fill in? It was like that whole thing with Zane when Zane was getting really good. Where like we know he could beat any Fox, but then he play like a random Samus, and it's like I don't know, man.
Right.
Um, so you see those people jump up in ranks really quickly, but the people who I think stick around and just get better are
Mhm.
the people like Billy, are the people like Flash. I don't think they have a matchup where I'm like give them anyone and they'll beat them, but they don't have a matchup on the other hand where I'm saying give them anyone and they'll lose to that. So I
Right,
think they're
right.
like super well rounded, and it's not flat. It's not flashy. It's not like it doesn't get people attention right away,
Mhm.
but it's the thing that like I think they can sustain it for a while. I think both of them are like that. What do you think as someone who plays both characters?
Yeah, I think they're both very like well rounded. I feel like Flash is more like like no, like I feel like he has like a clear game plan in his
Mm,
matches. You could tell he kind of like just I feel like he'll never like not deliver on what he normally does. Whether or not you beat him is on how good you'll play, but I feel like he'll always be consistent with how I feel like for the most part, outside of Grands, he kind of just like breezed through that tournament. Like he really didn't have he had a little like him and King Momo was pretty close, but I think for the most part, it was just three O's, 3 1s. He didn't really have that much of an issue throughout the bracket. Whereas like Billy, it was more bumps in the road. I feel like
mm,
once Billy got going, you just couldn't stop him. But there's points where it looked like, because he was gonna lose. Like, question his first set
Oh yeah.
and like how he lost the first game, and then he kept dying because he kept refreshing with the Firestall, but he kept doing it wrong, and he would get clipped by Marks Up and die. And I'm like, dude, is he gonna just lose right now? Because it looked like he was just gonna lose the question. And then he started playing a little bit better. Then the next set versus Mog, it's like, okay, yeah, he's looking pretty good. Looks like he might just win this, but I don't know. Salt's playing well. After he plays Salt, it's like, oh shit, okay, he's kind of just fucking Salt up, right? And
Yeah, I
then,
think he went
yeah,
down first game too.
right. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, because it looked like, okay, like, you know, Salt was probably, I thought Salt might have, it could go either way, but Billy kind of like went off. And then he played John, the real thing, who destroyed him in pools, actually destroyed him in pools. And it was like it was literally 180. Like, he what happened to him, he did the real. And then from there, I'm like, oh shit, he could just, if he does this the real thing, I feel like he could just win the tournament. And then when he beat Dewan, it's just like, I don't know. I feel like when you beat Dewan, like, sky's the limit. I feel like Dewan, even though Flash was beat Dewan, I feel like Dewan's still like perceived all time as like the final boss
Mhm.
amongst like black players, right? I feel like Dewan's legacy is probably, him and Axe are like clearly like the two, you know. And what Axe obviously not in this tournament, but you know, once he beat Dewan, I'm like, damn. I mean, he could just. I don't even think it's a matter of can he do it. More so, will he run out of steam? And then he just kind of he kept going. But I just feel like, I guess I say that to say, to your initial question, I feel like Billy had, not to say Billy doesn't have game plans, because I also think he's well rounded, but he felt more momentum based.
Mhm.
With Flash, it was kind of just consistent play throughout the whole tournament. Billy, he got bodied by King Momo the day before. The day before that, he lost the real thing. It wasn't just like he wasn't playing like that all weekend. And I think that's why it was so crazy with how he won, because he was shaky in a lot of those sets throughout the weekend. Whereas like Flash kind of just, I don't think Flash went to a game 5 that entire until he like King Momo. And that was like what, his 5th or 6th set at that point, 7th set. So I think that's the difference between them. I think Billy's just more polarizing. Well, Flash will always give you like what he knows.
Yeah. And it's not even an insult to Billy, because when you compare him to Flash, Flash, I don't know how, I was going to say top 50, top whatever you want to call Flash. Compare him to any other player in that range. I think you can call him the most like situational player of all of them. Do you uh,
Mm-hmm.
Edwin knows who I'm going to mention. There is a Chilean player, SP99, who is like the secret sauce behind all of these upcoming Falcos.
Okay.
He's the guy, he coaches Frenzy, and he's super close with Flash. I think that if you want to subscribe to SP99's Patreon to learn Falco tips, the image, like the icon for the Patreon, is Flash's face. So it's like they're very clearly linked.
Right.
So SP99 is very big labber in these types of things, and because of that, you can see that Flash is able to take all these situational awareness, all these like labbing. You saw it versus when he was playing Wizzy, you saw it versus Ginger at his Riptide sets, and like you see it here, right? There's so many
Mm-hmm.
things where like someone will do something and he's just immediately aware of what it is and what to do in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I think Billy, it's not even an insult to him to say that he's not as game plan oriented, because that's just like what Flash is, and that's why Flash was able to, like we talked about it during the Riptide, whether or not this was an intended pun, whether or not he's a flash in the pan, and how calm he looked at Riptide, despite the fact that it was like really his first major since being good, um, and like how composed he was able to play and just like recognize these situations, despite the fact that recognizing a situation, knowing what to do might be easy versus like a 20xx CPU, but when
Mm-hmm.
one of the best players in the world is doing it to you live in front of a crowd, he was still able to do it. So yeah, I think that like Billy is amazing, and it's not a knock on him to say that he's not as game plan oriented as Flash, because Flash is probably the most game plan oriented top
Right.
player that we've seen recently.
Right. But then you got Billy's situation where when he's playing good, like it's just
Yeah.
dudes like top 10. Which like not no knock to Flash, but like I don't know if Flash is on that type of shit, right? And I think low key to do that, it takes some inconsistencies because you got to think if Billy's trying to do that every game, he's gonna mess up. He's just gonna fuck up. Like he's not gonna be able to do that. There's just some days where he's just gonna play like shit. But then you got the bemi where everything just like the kind of stars align. It's kind of like it's kind of what you value, like consistency peaks kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the argument with those two players. I feel like even I do think Billy is game plan oriented, just not like Flash. But I do think
Yeah.
Billy's peaks are like I mean clearly Billy's peak is he looked like a top 10 player at the end of Bimmy to me. Like I don't see how that guy couldn't beat like IBDW or a Ginger or a Kadoran. Like I really think he just could.
I mean, Edwin said what? Drugged Fox and Crush?
I
Yeah.
said,
Yeah, dude. Those are
watching-
two pretty damn good players.
Yeah, I said watching videos of Billy like makes me feel the same magic that I did when watching Drug Fox and Crush before they like broke out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's a very good comparison. Just one thing on the Flash and the Flash and Billy thing. I think I would say that I would definitely still say Billy is very game plan, like we all agree on. But I think
Mhm.
what really, if I were to find a term or like a word or whatever that really separates Flash, or what I notice, I would say it's specifically like micro situations and like
Mhm.
very very like a lot of frame data knowledge and like making decisions that always like give him like advantage over his opponents and being able to like make a move first, let alone like shoot a laser, right?
He
Like,
knows
he's
what
so
lasers.
smart.
Yeah, like when he lasers, he knows what the opponent can do when the opponent's actionable. Right? It's like he's not feeling it out. It's not a guess. Yeah, I mean, hey, maybe it's the same thing with Billy because Billy, I don't know if he continued this when Slippy save states became a thing, and you could just like make a save state of any situation, or that might not be Slippy specific, but whatever the save state was. He like apparently there was like a Fox save state Discord, and he went hard and created all of these specific scenarios, just like save states, and I guess grinding it out. So that might be like he's so comfortable in those situations where it's like gameplay. It's gameplay oriented. It's situational awareness, but it's all just second nature. Not to say that Flash isn't. I don't know. Here's the thing about these two players that I hope we see enough to have this discussion again, because we're talking about two people who we don't see that often. So I know we've got LTC coming up. That's in Billy's current home state of Texas. I really hope we get to see him there. Genesis, of course. Like we got a ton of tournaments.
I hope we see Shroom too. Let's not forget. Like Shroom just casually.
I want to
came
see
back
this entire
again.
top 8. How about that? I want to see Salt
Yeah.
at a major. I want to see Prom versus I don't know, just Prom versus some random like Prom versus Iceman at Genesis pools. Like I don't know. I want to see it all. I think this is a super cool group.
A lot of I think what made me really improved too that you don't always have to enter tournaments to get better if you're like really specific about what you're working on. I mean, just like with the save states of Billy, I think it just showed like he almost like I think he got better despite like not entering anything. And it's just because it's just like instead of just playing a bunch, grinding a bunch, trying to win events, it's more like, all right, let me work on these situations and then iron it out, enter this tournament. I don't know. It just felt like this could be why Flash is so game plan oriented, because he's like working on his game plan constantly. And as far as DeJuan, I think his situation, just knowing him personally, right? It's just a matter of him just doing it. I think with him, DeJuan could just. I'll never forget this. We had a conversation, right? We're after Summit. We were all like kind of drunk, right? And we're just talking. Me and him are chopped it up. And he's like, man, this is a long time. It was probably like 4 or 5 years. Yeah, like 2018, 27. I can't remember. It was a while ago. And he's like, Brandon, he's like, dude, I really just believe I would just be, if I practice That's how you already know. He's like, I would just be a top 3 player free. Like I already know I would just be top 3. I was like, then why not just fucking why don't you do it? And then he goes, and I don't know. And then it's like, but the fact that like he can like he's not believing that for no reason, right? And the fact that he was like at this point was probably top 10, 15, like half practicing. It's just like with him, it's always a matter of just like, bro, just do it. You know, you got a level of talent that people would. He reminds me of Shaq. He really reminds me of Shaq. Like just like if you think of tech chasing like free throws, right? And Shaq will talk about, well, I'll never practice, but I'll give you 28-10 every night. And like that's kind of like what Dewan is. They're so similar in that regard. Like they get like how Kobe said about Shaq, we would have had 10 rings if he practiced and came into training camp in shape. We would have just won every year. And then, but I feel that way about Shroom a lot of the times. It's just a matter of him just sitting down and playing the game.
He's very fun to watch, and I think that like a non-zero part of that is it's kind of like when I watch Leffen, I want Leffen to win, but then also if he loses, that's funny, right? I think it's like a similar thing with Shroon, but it's instead of being funny, it's like it's cool, right? Like when Soof beat him at main stage, I was like, that's a great win for Soof, right? Like he's at this cool part of his career where I think we're all expecting that he can still top 8 a major because we saw it before. We saw it at Genesis 7.
Right.
But like whatever set he plays, whatever the outcome is, I think it's going to be hype. Because if he wins, that's hype, and if it's if he plays Billy and Billy wins, that's hype. I like whatever comes out of it. He's a very fun player to watch right now because I think his stakes are very it's very like lax, and because of that, I think like
Right.
the viewer's able to win.
He's got like Dewan right now to me has like gatekeeper vibes. Like if you're on the brink of being a top player if you can beat him, because like clearly he's not really doing anything to get better, but he's not getting worse.
Yeah.
So it's like if you can just get past that, then you can get in the door versus like the Mangos, the Zanes, the Cody's, Wizzies, like But I always think of Dewan as like that final boss amongst like the top players, or like the first boss. I don't know what to call it.
Yeah. When
Yeah,
you first enter the dungeon or whatever, he's the first
right,
one there.
right. The little mini boss before go fight the real bosses. But yeah, man, shouts to Dewan and everybody else. Like King Momo coming back, he was looking strong too. Obviously, the real thing is just ridiculous, John. There were a lot of dope players. I mean, Malachi, he was doing pretty good. Salt was looking crazy
Yeah.
that weekend. I mean, it was just a lot. I do wish Axe and Toussaint entered because I do think the tournament would have went completely different if those two were in the bracket. I don't know who would have won, honestly, but shouts to them. That would have changed the dynamic just because you got Pikachu and Puff. Ain't no telling what's gonna happen now with all these spacies. So, but yeah, it was a good weekend.
I think it was amazing. I think it was more than just a weekend too, how it was set up.
Right.
Obviously lots of entertainment, but just like the way it was set up, I think was amazing. Let's talk a little bit about like, so obviously Bemi, we talk about the bracket. Let's go a little further than that. Let's talk about like what it means. So this was really important, and I love your point about like a celebration that is not based in tragedy. What do you think that the scene can do more in terms of like celebrating representation, even of any kind? Like, what are your thoughts on what can be done?
More events of representation, right? Like I remember, I've gotten people told me, yo, you should do like an event for like, like like Asian hate, right? But it wouldn't to me it wouldn't feel right if it wasn't an Asian person that was facilitating it, right? So stuff like that, like what Gale does is great. What
Oh
Smash
yeah.
Sisters does is great. I don't. I think in groups where people are just marginalized or discriminated for whatever reason, I feel like they should know that they have safe spaces amongst Melee, because despite, Melee is very welcoming and it's a group for all, right? And Melee's really good at the community. At least is really good at understanding and putting emphasis on that. It's still like you being a minority is still a thing, right? Like I'm still like a black person in this space, no matter if I play the game or not. And I just think sometimes it would be good to see people who are in these like just marginalized groups to have some form of outlet amongst the game. I don't know. I don't know. I just think it'd be good because it helps people come together. But people take it as a way of like fucking like people get mad, say it's racism and all that bullshit. You can't. One fucking tournament isn't
Ugh.
not how racism works. But I think if you have something as a celebration for marginalized groups, especially if the like proceeds go to charity to help out with causes like in these situations, I see. I don't know. I don't see the downside from it, and it's not like I don't know these players. I don't know. They a lot of the players that are in Bimmy have had some form of discrimination, whether it be passive or overt, and to be able to emphasize that, as well as to know that everybody that you're competing with has also had that experience to some extent, or is also aware of that experience. I don't know. It makes things like I don't know easier to talk about and address. So in the future, people are more like privy to what's going on, and it educates people who like just don't have to deal with these situations or just aren't as aware of it, even though they might know it exists, but that's in the like what extent. But I think when you know people and you hear their experiences, I feel like you're way more likely to like put just preconceived notions and stereotypes aside. And i I feel like representation in Melee will help that, right? It's like, for example, like um some people might not know like about like a black person that got pulled over, right? But I that's happened to me, right? Numerous times. Them knowing me will at least educate them to think about that type of shit, you know. Um Same with like the Asian hate stuff. Like I personally don't know any Asian people that have had that happen, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. It clearly
Mhm.
happens, right? But imagine if you hear someone's story and they tell you like, "Well, hey, such and such happened to me." I feel like it puts you in a situation where you could really like understand and like empathize more when you have a direct link to people who experience these like forms of like either like discrimination, hate crimes, misfortunes, whatever it may be. When I feel like when you see the people that it's actually affecting, or you know people that are actually affected by it. Oh, hold on, sorry. My headphone came out. When you know that people that are actually affected by it, you're way more likely to actually, in my opinion at least, think about it and to understand that. Like,
For sure.
because if you go clueless, you don't know anybody that's happened to, you might not necessarily like excuse it, but it's just dude who just wouldn't cross your mind. But when you know somebody that, especially someone close to you, like if you have like a really good friend and that's happened, you know, you will you will want to educate yourself to know like, okay, this happens and what can I do to either like possibly help or just be aware of it, because a lot of it's just awareness too. I think like another reason why I like the whole representation thing is just it just puts a light on these situations as a whole. That's why like with the big one, like we streamed the whole like the top 4 gala bracket, like
Mhm.
it should be exposed because like they're like a marginalized group of people who go through things that like I have the privilege of not dealing with those things, but that doesn't mean that like they don't happen, you know, and people who have to deal with these things, because they have to deal with these things whether they play Smash or not, right? So, um, I don't know. I feel like having a space where you can at least being able to emphasize it and have people who go through these things talk about it, cope with it, like try to fix it, whatever. I feel like it just helps everyone overall to understand people's situations better, in my opinion. Oh,
Edwin, I
sorry if
want
I
to
was too long winded. My bad.
no, that was
Yeah,
perfect. Edwin, I
yeah.
want to hear your thoughts on this really quickly, though. I just want to say, um, Brandon, no, you're totally right. You're, like everything you said there was right, I love the points that you made, because this is something that I've said. I know it's like I'm gonna say it in a cornier way, uh,
No,
but
you're good.
I agree. Like I think, I got into the scene when I was 19,
Mhm.
um, and I guess I'm gonna use the phrase like you don't know how much you don't know, right?
Right,
I
right,
was
yeah.
19. I consider myself open minded, but when you look at it, right, just like socioeconomically, my
Mhm,
friends were from my high school, which
mhm,
was in the suburbs, and like everyone there was, it's like you get there because you're in the suburbs. You're in the school of the suburbs, like a pretty nice, an okay suburbs, um,
mhm,
and then like you don't realize that you might see people of different colors, people of different sexual orientations, people of different, whatever.
mhm,
Um, but your worldview is still not huge, right? And
mhm,
I definitely think that there's only so far that you can go without. There's only so much that you can know and so much that you can feel and empathize with,
mhm,
without searching for stuff. And I think that Smash was a way for a lot of people, and still is a way for a lot of people, to just meet people from different, like if you meet someone from a different country, you meet someone from a different part of America, right?
mhm,
It's just because you want to play the game, just because you love Marth or whatever, just some random thing. But
mhm,
suddenly, without realizing it, what you're doing is you're connecting with people who have different experiences than you. And because of that, you're able to see them exactly like you said as
mhm.
experiences and not just like stories, right?
Right,
Because a
right.
lot of the problem is people, they're like, I know this exists and I feel bad, but like there's a limit to how much people kind of feel bad for something where they don't have any grounding.
Mhm,
And I think that Smash is a weird way, right? It's like I've talked before about how Smash, like, um, people who do stuff in the scene come out the other end and they're like, wow, I just liked playing this game and now my organizational skills are so good. And I think it's the same thing with like worldview. People go into the scene just because they love Smash, they like played it when they were a kid, and they come out with just like more empathy and just like being open-minded to a level that I don't know if they were. Not to say that, like, obviously I think that everyone can stand to be more open-minded. I can stand to be more open-minded probably. I don't know the ways that I'm not open-minded, right? It's just like I understand there's probably something out there that I don't know about, that I'm not knowledgeable about. But I think that
mhm,
like Smash does a weirdly good job, just like by the community, of opening people's minds without even thinking about it. Edwin, what do you
mhm,
think? I'm sure you've got some thoughts.
Yeah, I actually just have one question for Brandon. In
mhm.
terms of reception to this kind of event, did you notice a difference between how it was received this year in terms of like positive or negative or feedback or anything compared to what it was like last year?
Oh, the first time people were fucking pissed,
Yeah.
and a lot of people were mad. I'm just saying, it was a lot of white men that were pissed last year. It's usually who gets mad at this type of event. This year, because I think it happened last year, people see it, so it's not as perceived as bad. I think, and I also think with last year when we announced it, people thought it was for like Ultimate, and I think that's what blew it up. And I was like, oh,
Oh
this is
no.
just for Melee. Just because the Ultimate's online is just it's impossible. But yeah, I mean, I think this go around it wasn't as bad. But anytime this type of stuff comes up, like I remember when Smash Sisters came out, a lot of people didn't like that. Um, Gale people don't like that. I mean, you're always gonna have like some fucking racist who hates it. I'm just call a spade a spade. But for this time around, I think it was a lot more positive. I think it was a lot. I think it was a lot more positive, and I think too, just the way like society, like I don't know, 2022 seems more tame than when we announced it in like late 2020, early 2021. Like back then, it was a lot of shit just happening back then. Just it was just more a more hectic time. Not to say that's not like that now. I mean, it was only a year, but yeah, I would say overall it was more positive, but you know, you still got the people who like, you know, call it like segregation and
Jesus
you
Christ.
know, shit like that. And people always tell me, well, why don't I host a white tournament and blah blah blah. I was like, oh, you can do that. Like no one's gonna stop you, man. Like, you know, but you know, you're always gonna have those type of people who like come around and just like are mad. I remember last year, a lot of the players were angry at that response. I remember Salt messaged me, Dewan. They were both. A couple players were pissed that people were mad about that type of event. And then you know, but in my mind, that's more reason why we should have these type of events to challenge that rhetoric, right?
Hmm.
Um,
I mean, already,
yeah, there was a
I think
guy
you're
on
seeing
Twitter.
people
Oh, go
who
ahead.
already within a year, I think like just continuing to run it, you're already if you said that the how people respond has already changed, then you're already seeing changes like that. Yeah, so I
Mhm.
think that there's already reason to believe that continuing to run stuff like this, like
Yeah,
that it'll just go away as it more happens more. Sorry, I did cut
yeah.
you off.
No,
What were you
you're
about to
good.
say?
No, it's just challenging that rhetoric, um, and then you know just to put it on display, like, hey man, like we need something that's done for us, you know, by us having you know, I see a couple of dudes that were saying on Twitter, like, well, you know, I like the idea, but I don't like it in this way, blah, blah, blah. Like, you'll always have some white dude telling, like, black people how they should do things and feel and stuff like that. And my whole goal was to challenge that shit, like, deliberately. Like, yo, like, if that makes you uncomfortable, good. Because this is how we feel majority, like 99% of the time, right? This is a one fucking weekend where it's just, you know, all black tournament in Black History Month, a month that was not given to us, like that we didn't make ourselves, to be real. So, you know, we're going to celebrate this month. And whoever feels weird about it, I like good because it puts all this shit on display. Why things are the way they are. You know, why there aren't that many black people that go to tournaments. Why, you know, black people are like athletes and rappers and shit like that a lot of the times. Like this event puts shit like that on display. And I don't think a lot of people like dealing with like the idea of just like that challenge, you know? So you'll see people respond in that way. Um, but yeah, I guess Edwin's initial question. I apologize if I veered off. Uh, this go around, it was a lot more positive than the first time. I think the first time because people hate what they don't understand, and because they didn't understand it, they shat on it a little bit more. But now I think people got a better understanding, and a lot of people are very supportive of you guys. Most people, like at least the known people, um, are supportive. I know I feel like some people aren't because they just it's a slippery slope for them. But I also say they don't understand it. And the whole point is to put this on display for people to understand. And just I don't know, just put on display. Like I said, I encourage any person from a marginalized group that's going through stuff, uh, and you want to celebrate like what your group has been through and is going through and all that, by all means, man. I support it. Just like the net play for Palestine event,
Hmm.
you know, that was cool. Um, but even with that, like just having more things like that by the people who have to deal with those issues every day, I encourage it just because I think it will help people understand their side of like, you know, what they go through daily. You know, hopefully I worded that well. I'm sorry if that was like fucking. Long
Yeah,
I had.
no, that was a good answer. I only have one follow up, which
Yeah, go
is
ahead.
that if you ever ran this again, would you consider doing it in person?
Yeah, so I wanted to do that initially, but it's just hard because you got to find a venue, place to do it. You got to fly people out. I just don't have the money or the resources. Like I am sponsored, but like that can only I can only do so much with that. Um, but if the funds were there and the people that were involved were willing to do it, 100%, 100%. I would love to do something like that, like especially here in Oakland. Like it's just like a very this place is pretty historic amongst Black culture. Like having it, like when we did like "Don't Go Down There" or no, not "Don't Go Down There," Jeff. Like I'm not yelling. That was done at Merritt College. That's where the Black Panther Party formed. Having something like that there, like if you go in that venue, there's a big ass picture of a dude with like a shotgun and like a sword like this, and it's Huey Newton, the founder of the Black Panthers.
Oh wow.
Initially, like
That's
a lot
hella
of people
cool.
don't know that, so I'm telling them, like I was telling them, was it Mango or Drug? I was telling somebody, I was like, yeah, that's like founder of the Black Panthers. Like Bobby Seale's still alive. He's the other founder, right? Like
Hmm.
I would love to have something like that there because especially for a lot of older Black people, they don't understand like esports and just gaming in general. And like I would love to link the two as far as that to show, you know, this is what we do and it's cool. And to also show Black people like, hey, like this is what we can create with what we got. I don't know. But one day I would love to do it in person, but it's just hard because you got flights, hotels. It's just so much money. Online is just so much cheaper. But one day I would love to do that one day, but we'll see.
I hope it works out. I mean, you've got two beautiful events that you already ran here. So,
Yeah.
the third
Thanks.
one, if it's coming, regardless if it's in person or online, I think you're going to kill it. And yeah, I mean, I don't know how like the funds will work for that, but if there's a way for that to through sponsorships or something,
Yeah,
I
real
mean,
quick,
that'd be
sponsors.
amazing.
Any sponsors watching this? Like some big ass sponsor, you want to do help host Bimmy 2023? Hit me, man. I'm all ears. Just yeah, because I honestly think the outreach of it being in person, I think would be a lot bigger than if we did it online. You know what I'm saying? And then especially with it being offline, we could probably do one for Ultimate too. You know, like it would just I don't know. I just think it would have more pull. But hey,
I think it'd be amazing.
yeah.
Um, before we go on, we're about to we're talking about this wonderful event. We're
Mm-hmm.
gonna talk about how our wonderful little community. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so some of the more annoying parts of it. Do you have anything you want to say about Bemmy before we move on? Any like last words or anything
I,
you need to
I
say?
just want to say thank you guys. Thank to anybody who supported it. Any non-black person supporting this. I truly appreciate it. I appreciate the empathy that you have, the understanding that you have of what like we go through as people. Not to say that other groups of people don't have issues. We all do as humans, but I appreciate that everybody is aware enough to be able to just empathize and understand the situations that our people go through as a whole. And also for our people that were involved in this event, like I said, it's just dope. It's something that I'm just glad that we are able to all create this without it stemming from something negative or spawning anything negative. It's all love. It's always support. And the fact that, a bunch of Black people could come together to do some dope shit, I'm always like, I'm I'm happy. And what makes me happy about it, I think the biggest thing is like um people's parents followed the event. You know,
Oh yeah.
like I got players' parents following me on Twitter and shit like that, or like my mom coming up to me telling me she's proud of me, and like, it's just one thing for like, just because I did well at a or like did a tournament well or whatever, but it's like it's a representation of not just the players involved. You know what I mean? And to see like any black person, especially when I think about my grandmother, right, or like my nana, my dad's mother, like she was born in Mississippi, right, uh had to deal with the whole whites only, that's type of stuff, walking hella far to use the bathroom. That's not that far of like that. That's a 1-2 like, my dad, I've told this before, he was born in Mississippi. His birth certificate is literally says Negro on it. Just seeing like how far we came and seeing them like happy about that, given like what the shit they had to go through for me to be here and do this, it's like it means a lot. So, I'm just happy that people fuck with it. And like I said, everybody who's just like showing like allyship in that regard, it really means a lot. So thank you guys. But yeah.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah.
Obviously, we still have more to talk about, but yeah, I mean, I just want to thank you off the bat right here for coming on here. I think that like even people who understand what the message is, this is still like an amazing thing to hear, because just going over it all, it's obviously something that I think was really accomplished well, and getting your voice out there, getting your voice heard, getting literally the voices of your players heard. You had those wonderful interviews.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think you killed this.
Thank
And
you.
we mentioned the tournament, how the tournament ran itself, obviously great, but even just what the tournament represented, what's larger than the bracket matches and everything like that.
Right.
I'm
And
so happy we got to talk about that.
thank you. And to be fair, I think the reason why you see so many inactive players enter this event is because of what it represents. Because they know it's bigger than how any of us perform or do. It's bigger than that. It's just it's the overall message. And so, because like Phil, for example, he doesn't really enter
Hmm.
tournaments, but he's like, yeah, I'll like Shroom said the same thing. I'll enter Bimmy every year because I don't care how good, bad I am, whatever. It's bigger than any individual at that point. And I think that's why you see a lot of inactive players just be like, all right, let me dust off the controller for one weekend. And, so yeah. But thank you guys, for showing support. Like, it really does mean a lot. Yeah.
Anything we can do. I
Yeah.
think the event was amazing, and whatever small part we can do to help it reach that vision, which you reached the vision, you exceeded the vision, because
Thank you.
yeah, I was, I know we talked about how you like brought it to us, brought the idea to us, ran some things by, but like what the actual end product was something that exceeded my expectations. I think that
Oh,
you
right
killed it
on.
in more ways than I can say.
Yeah, shouts to everybody involved. Jade, of course, helped me. Shouts to Cav who edited. He edited a lot of the interviews that you saw. Dude, the week before I was just like I was just in Discord calls every day talking to, interviews. But it was cool. Shouts to everybody that did the interview too. Like hearing not just because like from my perspective, right? Cis straight black male, right? But hearing like Alan's uh black experience, Journey's black experiences, like these are all unique experiences that I feel like should be heard. And it was cool to hear that. Like I learned shit. You know what I learned? I'll end it on this. uh Alan, because Alan went to Merritt College. I told you that's where the Black Panther Party started. They said that for his tournaments that he hosted, they made the most off of a black fundraiser since the Black Panther Party. So he raised the most money for like black events at that college, aside from the Black Panther Party. Obviously, the Black Panther Party.
Wow.
But
Wow.
I
Yeah.
thought that blew my mind. Yeah, that was crazy. So shouts to Alan and what he did. But it's just you don't think about that shit, like, right? Like you just go to a tournament, but in your head, like when you really look at that, you're like, damn, man, like you just influenced, like, you know, just it's history right there. I don't know. It's kind of cool.
It's good to be cognizant of everything that happens around us, and I think that this event, it's cognizant of the people, like that, each person, each individual, but also
Mhm.
of what these events mean, like what the event themselves mean. um
Mhm.
so yeah, I appreciate this so much. Are you ready to talk about what's going to be a less fun conversation?
Oh, go ahead, man. I'm all ears. I see
uh
it in the little thing.
Yeah, yeah. There's usually a little elegant transition, but I think that it's probably best to just rip the Band-Aid off. So I'm sure people have seen by now, but earlier this week, Evo announced that they are going to have a reveal show for their games as they normally do.
Mhm.
This time around, they were as nice as they could possibly be about this, and they just told us straight up. They said in the announcement that Smash not only is not going to be part of Evo 2022, so Melee or Ultimate, but it's probably because of Nintendo. That's what it seems like. You know,
Right.
they call out Nintendo by name, and we obviously have history of Nintendo intervention. Hey,
What?
you can watch a good 30-minute video on the Melee
There's a
Stats
history of
channel.
Nintendo intervention with Smash? This is news to me.
Well, Edwin, you must go to Melee Stats YouTube. Check the game that Nintendo wishes it never made. No, obviously we all know about this. We've been around long enough. You know, Brandon, you've been around longer than we have. But like time after time, there's just examples of this, and we live in this like weird time where. So we made the video, of course. You know, I think this was October. I think it came out. And the announcement for the Panda Nintendo circuit was in November, and we had these very funny YouTube comments, which were very nice. They were like, "Wonderful video. It's a shame that it's a little outdated now." And even then, I was like, "I don't think it's outdated." You know, even if Nintendo gives us a circuit, they do everything we want. It's important to know the history. And now we're just kind of seeing history repeat itself already this quickly. So
Right.
yeah, I mean, Evo as Melee fans, Evo has not had Melee since I think it was 2018 was the last one. That was also the only Evo I went to. So
Oh, really?
glad I got one in.
That's
Um,
dope.
so it's been some years since Melee has been there, and I think Melee fans have kind of resigned to the fact that despite the fact they could get like 1,000 entrants or so, um, that it just wasn't in the cards to have two Smash games there. But I think the fact that this included Ultimate as well, you know, that was the leading game at the last
Right.
Evo 2019. It was the first year for Ultimate, but even then, it had like almost 1,000 more entrants than the next leading game.
Right. Right.
So
It's
it's like
tough.
we're just getting to this part where we talked with Blur last week or 2 weeks ago, our last episode. We talked with Blur and we talked about how Smash as a whole and Melee, of course, as well, is like the best bang for your buck that you can do if you're an organization. FlyQuest just basically donated $50,000 to us, and we are like already it's week 2, and we're already like loving them, right?
Right. Right.
Um, you know, if you're a tournament or sorry, if you're a big organization, what the goodwill you can get by running a tournament or by sponsoring a player or by, you know, Golden Guardians obviously it's got the grassroots fund. Like the amount of tens of thousands of dollars that you throw into Melee and people end up loving you for it. Put that tens of thousands of dollars into Overwatch or something and it makes no mark at all, right? It's just you're throwing money in the trash. So it's like we're at this weird part where we spend a whole episode talking about how Melee's looking up because of the fact that we are able to do so much with so little.
Mm-hmm.
And we turn around and one of the things that could do most for us, Evo, not even us for Melee, just like even Smash, just having Smash Ultimate there. And we look at it, we see that Nintendo's just not evolved, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it definitely feels some kind of way about that. But yeah, I don't know. What was your thoughts, Brandon? Like, I don't know if you had any specific thoughts on this.
I'd be lying if I said I was surprised. You know, I figured once Sony took over Evo, it was a wrap. Like I already thought. Yeah, it's probably not gonna. I'd be shocked if Nintendo was there and Sony owns the tournament.
Yeah.
Well, no way. So yeah, bummer. But I mean, I don't know. In ways, it's like a blessing because you know everybody kind of thinks Evo sucks as far as the Smash perspective. Like it gets hard carried by Vegas, being real. Although Rick is in charge of it now,
Yeah. Yeah.
so it's just gonna be a better event. However, I don't know. I just feel like you know it opens the doors up for places like Genesis even more so. and Big House to really just be the Evos that we've already had, you know, that we just kind of take for granted. I
Mhm.
mean, I know Evo has the prestige because of, where it is and just how it has always been ran. And I think Smash, especially just being around back in the day when Smash wasn't as big as the FGC, Smash was always like the little brother to the FGC. There, they always kind of look down on it until it got to a point where, our numbers were like just bigger and just more, there's more resources in Smash. You could like finding tutorials for games like a lot of FG like fighting games. It can be hard, whereas like Melee, there's like SSBM tutorials, there's Patreons, there's Metafies, there's all kind of stuff. And I think because of all these little things that people have done in the community, from the lessons to the hack packs to making rollback, shouts to Fizzy, to all these little things, 20xx, all that stuff, you just get more people into the community, and because there's more resources, so more people are able to play it. And it just got to a point where more people are just playing these games and they got more popular. And same with Ultimate, obviously Ultimate being newer, you just get more people. And I always thought that we we want the validation from Evo to be a part of what everyone else is a part of, but we've already had Evos without even realizing it. And I think with Big House and Genesis, maybe there's another tournament in the mix somewhere that can get involved, but these tournaments is really open season for them to like take that floor, because Smash is still a big market. A lot of people play it. So, I mean, hey, uh, so much as it sucks, there's no Evo. You can make a Smash version of that and just put all the games in there, and then boom, But
Yeah,
yeah.
if I can just say so really quickly, I
Mm-hmm.
almost forgot that not necessarily that Evo was a thing, but because of the pandemic and because it's been what, since 2018 since Melee appeared at Evo.
Mm-hmm.
I In 2019, I guess, since Smash appeared at Evo. In fact, thinking about it more, it's mostly just because of the pandemic. But
Yeah,
but like
the reason
Mm-hmm.
why.
but like
But
thinking about it a little bit more, like it's funny that this is like news to us, because like the scene, I would say, even during like, however COVID may turn out, I think the scene is in a really good place for
Mm-hmm.
the eventual, return of the second return of LAN events. I think it's a great time to get involved in Melee. I think there's a ton of interest in returning players. There's a ton of new people coming into the scene. This is kind of like a new generation of Slippy kids and whatnot. And the idea that like the community could be in this position to where like, forget Melee for a second, but like Evo is not gonna have a Smash game, and
Mm-hmm.
at least on the Melee side, it seems like we'll be okay, or
Mm-hmm.
that it's kind of a minor annoyance that represents a larger uh, obstacle of Nintendo. Sort of, I think it
Mm-hmm.
speaks to volumes for the community's effort and like our ability to kind of maintain this entire infrastructure, this network around this game that we really believe in and want to see continue doing well
Mm-hmm.
with all its community members. I guess it's kind of like that's a bit of a glass half full approach.
Yeah.
But don't get me wrong, it's really frustrating that, at least for the Smash community as a whole, that it's not going to have this opportunity, which would have been pretty helpful. But I don't
Mm-hmm.
think. But I don't think. I think the scene will be fine.
it
Yeah.
just it sucks to hear something out loud, even if you know it's true, right? It's like this. It's
Yeah.
not even about Melee. It's just like, even if you know something's true, it's just tough to hear the words, and in this case, read the words. But I think both of you are right. Brandon, you make that case about the community. The community has this infrastructure because we don't expect anything from Nintendo, right? If
Mm-hmm.
you waited around for Nintendo to make what you want, it would never happen. So that's the reason why we have a top 100. That's the reason why we've got you know uh, Uncle Punch and Rollback and all these things. Like, obviously, you've got mods for different games. They're able to like do stuff to make the game easier, and they do have grassroots scenes, of course. But yeah, like the fact that Nintendo not having a foothold means that we don't have to be worried if they like magically, you know, take all their chips out of Smash, because they
Mhm.
don't have any chips and we're doing pretty fine right now. I guess it's just like confusing to me, right? Um, I don't know if it's not Evo, then what, right? I get the Sony thing. I've seen a lot of people saying the Sony thing, and I think that's good reasoning. I think it's kind of a little bit of a bullshit reason, though, right? It makes sense from a
Mhm.
business perspective, but it's also just like, if you really cared, it's overall good. It's net good, even if it's not even if it's your competitor. Adam, what do you think?
Well, this is what I think. You've just given me a great idea. Okay, what if, what if this was all a plan from
I don't like how
Nintendo?
you're. I don't
Because
like your
they're
tone right
going to
now.
reveal their Evo coming up at the same time. Like maybe it just hit me. Maybe as some part of like some kind of circuit with official events. I'm sure it'd be planned really well with a lot of transparency given to the community and whatnot. I can't imagine that something like this could just like be announced and then totally left under the table and not acknowledged at all. Surely there has to be some kind of plan, like a mastermind plan.
So, you know, it's interesting, right? That's part of the confusion that I talk about, because if you look at every other game, they've got some sort of connection. That like any game that has Evo and has a circuit, it's some sort of thing. Some games it's like a premiere. Some games it's its own thing. Some games are like, yeah, this is like, there's like champions, or like, and then there's Evo. It's like this weird separate thing, because that's the only way that they can do it. They can like, uh, you know, like they have to incorporate Evo into them. I think for Capcom World Tour, or whatever it's called, it's Capcom Pro Tour. I believe they have very specific rules. It has to be like run, um, like best of five, top eight, and all these things in order to qualify. And they've just like, they have to work with Evo on these types of things, because they understand that they are working with Evo, not Evo's working with them. Um, but yeah, it's like we are seeing a pretty perfect opportunity for what would be a premier event in a circuit. Um, but it's not the case. Uh, and we are getting into March. It's officially March, which is coming up on, I think it's past 4 months since we heard the announcement. The announcement was in November, late November. Um, and I don't know. People might know, but I don't know, as someone who has a little connection to the scene. But more importantly, I have no idea as a spectator, right? The average person has no idea what's going on. You see the announcement, and I guess like, the cynical take is that they just made the announcement without any intention of doing anything, and just get the goodwill from like all the people who saw all the boycott Nintendo stuff. But it's just like, you mention it. This is a great time to get into Melee, because we're about to have a bunch of tournaments. Double Down got pushed back, yeah, of course. But what we do have is we have Genesis. We've got the Function, which is going to be a smaller event that has a bunch of top players. Same with Smash Camp, which is also going to be like small in entrant numbers, but tons of top player representation. We have probably a summit coming up very soon. That's not something that would be involved in a circuit, more than likely, but like, there's reason to believe that like the scene right now is healthy. And if you're going to have a Genesis in a few weeks, in 6 weeks, whatever it is, you'd think by now we'd know if it was partnered with Nintendo, if it was a circuit event. And it's just like, I have no idea. You know, like, are people signing up for CEO thinking that there's going to be a circuit with them, or are they just signing up because they're happy to see that Melee's back? It's like, what do they want from us, right? We got to know something. I don't know. Brandon, what do you think?
I don't know. I
Like everyone
I
else, right?
I think, yeah. I mean, it's probably some legality shit going on that we just don't know about.
Hmm.
I'm assuming. Um, But yeah, at this point, it's kind of just, you know, it's because I know Pandas. This is not the only thing that they've kind of like just announced, and we're kind of like wondering what the fuck. Because I thought that with the controllers too. We keep it real. Um, and we're kind of just waiting. But I know it's probably takes a long time to like. I could imagine if you're emailing like some higher up in Nintendo, how long that takes
Mhm.
just to get to that person's inbox. So who knows, man? Who really knows? I wish I could give you like a solid answer on like when the circuit would come or why
Well, I mean, none
why
of us
when.
can. That's the point of this,
Yeah, I
right?
really just don't. I
We've
can't
entered
fathom
the
why.
third month of 2021. And we not only have we not had events for 2022. We've entered the third month of 2022. And
Mhm,
not only have we not had events in the
mhm,
for the 2 months that came before this, we've not had news. We don't know if an
mhm,
event's coming. Like, I don't know, you would basic ideas with this is that you'd think that if an event was partnered, we know by now, even if it was in
mhm.
May or June or whatever. So it's like I don't know what to believe at this point, right? Edwin, what do you think?
I mean, the thing is, it's like think about think about Nintendo for a second, right? Like this is a massive company, like multi billions of dollars. They're basically like as big as you could get for like specifically video games, right?
Mhm,
And the thing is, like when there's a massive giant like this, its decisions are on and its operations are on such a scale that like people like you or me or most people watching this, like we can't fathom that, right? So there's so many things that go into like their decision making calculus that we wouldn't even like think about, that just have to do with like money and like ownership over IP and things like that, right? In
mhm,
terms of like they have this much time, they have this many resources, what are they going to pay attention to, and what do they need to pay, how much attention do they need to pay to something to retain control over it while doing all these other things, right? So it's like this is one of those things that it's so hard to conceptualize whatever headspace they're in, because their entire the way that they make decisions around us is part of the broader decision making process that affects like a bajillion other things that we wouldn't even think about. And
yeah,
like the terrifying part of that is that like this is our community. This is something that we put a lot like our heart and soul into. For some of us, it's basically like it gives us the same kind of, if not a greater kind of professional fulfillment than the thing that we do for a job,
mhm,
or things that we did for our jobs. So to have like all this effort that we're putting into something that it doesn't quite feel like, in fact, you know what? Forget feelings for a second. It just literally, we don't own a lot of what we're putting effort into, because there's always the chance that in the offhand that we think we own it, this company is going to come in and without any other like explanation that we may think we're owed, they're going to take it away or tell us that it's actually theirs, right?
mhm,
And this is what makes this whole situation so frustrating, because it's not just the fact that we don't know about the circuit. We It's not just the fact that we don't know about whatever future events come along, and we don't even know whether maybe a week before Genesis they send a letter to Genesis giving them an offer they can't refuse in the form of sponsorship. Is that the lack of knowledge we have in this, the lack of transparency to the public, to the rest of the community. It's indicative of or it reflects how little control we have over this thing that we really love and we care about, and that we fear is going to be taken away from us in the way that the like that's what's really frustrating with this. Like I think I mean, obviously now is not like exclusively the time, but I think that it's, if you're an average member of the community and you want to see the scene do well, you want to see contributors have ownership over the things that they do, and you want them to continue growing the scene in the way that they see fit, you should be extremely skeptical of this idea that like Nintendo ever has the scene's interest in it at heart. Number one. And like this is not a moral judgment on people at Nintendo. This is not like an interpersonal thing. This is just the reality of how big companies operate, and the reality of what it's like if you think that your best interests are in trusting this big company to operate your scene. You're being like we're seeing parts of the scene getting pulled into the like Nintendo vortex, right? We're being told that like, maybe we can exit this vortex with a lot more riches or a lot more like good things for the scene, right? But we don't even know what that like as far like we don't even know what that is for tournaments that get sponsored by Nintendo. And frankly, like if we like give conceding more control to this, or entertaining this idea that like working with this company will have our scene's best interest in heart, I don't know if I can really buy it. Maybe is it worthwhile to have people in the community provide some kind of perspective of like maybe not reconciliation but understanding, and like having some kind of relationship with Nintendo? Yeah, I mean maybe, but like I think as a whole, like most community members should be extremely skeptical and extremely wary, and like whatever that is, that should be the exception. That should not be the standard or the rule. And that's just my opinion.
It's a communication failure, right? We've had zero information on this, just besides the fact that it's supposedly a thing. And yeah, there's a couple different ways to look at it. I guess maybe a generous reading of that is that saying like, well, it's a big company, they're all important, so this probably takes a long time. But you can tell that if that were the case, then that means we're not important, because they're just
Yeah,
like, they aren't taking their time doing it. Like they are taking their time doing everything. We're not prioritized.
we're not
Um,
prioritized, and apparently we're prioritizable enough to where we can have control over what we do.
and it's just I think that's part of it too, right? We're in a weird in between, um, where I will still say we're in a great time for Melee. I think
Of course.
luckily the past couple years we've been able to say that this is some of the best Melee ahead of us, and I think that every time we said that, it's pretty much true, and I think you can say that right now. But what's also happening is that we're talking about the Melee that we are making ourselves, right? We're talking about the grassroots events. We're talking about all the stuff that we know to be happening. And what you mentioned about it's all up in the air, right? We don't know what Nintendo's doing, and we know what Nintendo have done in the past. So there is a chance that something might happen, and they're like, actually, what's going to happen is this. And then what we think is going to happen, all the announced events suddenly are going to have to uh, do this new thing, or fit these new directions. We just saw this past week Capcom talked about their community license, which is this way of running events for smaller events, I believe. I was not able to read the entire thing, so I might be wrong on some of this, but I believe there's a way that they view events. And basically, like, if you are a very large organization, if you're like Samsung or something and you want to run an event, it's going to be different than the way that I would run a Street Fighter event, right? If I were to do it. Like, they're obviously, Capcom is going to have different views on that. So I believe what's happening is they created a community license, which is basically like, this is a tournament, like this is a Street Fighter tournament, you're all above board. And in a way where instead of having people apply for it or individual, like case by case basis, it's just this whole thing where it's like, here are all the rules. The rules that were laid out were insane. Let me read you some of them. I have some of them in front of me. The prize pool of the event must be set and clearly disclosed in advance of the event in the event rules, and must be under $2,000 per event. So meaning events with events that have over $2,000, or events that have dynamic prize pools, meaning from donations or stuff like that, you're kind of screwed. Let's see. Sorry, I'm reading through it now. I know there was something about, okay, yeah, here. You may not charge any fee to spectators to participate in an event.
Damn.
Which is insane, because you're talking to people, spectator fee is obviously going to be lower than what it costs to play in an event. But you're telling me that this person can just come in, like the $40 or whatever that a spectator pass pays, it pays towards these events so they can run.
Right.
It's like what
like
a venue
saying
fee is.
it's like saying like, yo, you could watch this NBA game for free.
Yeah.
You just go into fucking the Madison Square Garden and not pay a ticket. That'd be fucking crazy. They would
Yeah, it's
sell
like
out every night.
I do like the idea of, getting more spectators into it, but I'm like, this can't be the way, right? There seems like they are screwing over smaller tournament organizers, and I don't think that's the intention. But we've already seen tournaments drop Street Fighter. The Juicy is a monthly in Florida, and they just dropped Street Fighter. I know Street Fighter 5, people are expecting this to be the last year for it, and Street Fighter 6 coming out in 2023. But like, Street Fighter is one of the biggest games and one of the biggest companies, probably the biggest company in fighting games, unintentionally or intentionally scared off people from running the game. And I see that, and I don't see a reason why we should think that that's completely out of the question for Nintendo, right? We have no idea what they're doing. And it's just like, okay, well, if Capcom can do that, Capcom, who Nintendo fans look at and say, like, well, they treat their game better than us. If they can do that, then what about our game, who we know in the past few years has canceled P Plus from Riptide, shut down the Big House Online. Obviously there's all that stuff about like whether or not we could have gotten an E-League or something. And the thing that starts it all, which is Evo. It's like there's a history to this. And yeah, I think that like what Evo means to Smash, Evo could be great for Smash, could get a lot of eyes. Evo's not something we need, but what this decision means doesn't make sense to me. And the confusion starts to become me getting a little worried. So I truly have no idea what follows from here.
Yeah. Me neither. At least it's on Nintendo's end. And it kind of just like fighting games in general, right? I feel like those two are like Capcom and Nintendo are like the
Yeah.
biggest ones. So it's so it was. I guess with Nintendo, I get why they wouldn't care as much to reach out to their like the competitive scene, just given the fact that their audience is so broad. It's like millions, like so many people in the world play Nintendo games. We're just like a small pocket. But I feel like at least with Capcom, I mean they also have a big fan base, but I just feel like Street Fighter being one of their most renowned games and knowing like the history with Evo that they have is it's kind of
Mhm.
weird that they would
I
do
think that
that.
the community license probably doesn't fall. Evo probably doesn't fall under that. I think Evo's big enough to be its own thing. But yeah, it's just like the idea of if you want a grassroots tournament, that now you might have stipulations which include no spectator fee, can only be $2,000, and it needs to be you need to show how much it is beforehand, which is, by the way that obviously we all know this, but to anyone who doesn't, the way that most prize pools is that you pay money to enter, and then you get a cut of that money, so you don't know how much it's going to be until everyone's done entering, till registrations ends. um, and there's also a part about no TV broadcast, which I don't think Smash is about to be on ABC or anything anytime soon. But it is weird to see this limiting. And maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm not reading it right. Maybe there's something that I'm missing on this. But like, it's baffling to me to see this, and I
I,
don't know how this relates to Nintendo. But I just like it feels
yeah,
weird.
I just think it's like a form of control, right? Like you know, you want to cut that pipeline before it gets too big. I think it's like fear of I at least even if like Capcom runs shit tournaments, at least it's like their tournament, right? But when you have somebody running a tournament for your game better than you, that's like a threat, I feel like, for them. And I feel like you just if you cut all the small like TOs from even getting a chance to build that rapport with the community, then you just have a more form of control of what you want to do. And it makes it to where just like, all right, well, if we wipe out all these smaller ass events and make them meaningless, at least all the people that show up for our events will only go to our events. That's what I would think. It just seems like a form of control to me. I can't think of another reason why you would hold like small TOs other than the fact of like you would see them as a threat to your shit. So
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's a weird time because it's a scary time because we know that stuff can happen. I mean, it
Yeah.
wasn't that long ago where you couldn't run Dragon Ball Fighters when it was like the biggest game, and like they didn't even. It was like a Toei thing. They weren't even really. I don't know if we really got a idea why, like specifically, um, but some sort of rights issues, and now Capcom and like a absolute just like nothing from Nintendo that we're getting. So it's all very confusing. I guess like all I can say at this point is that like despite all of this, maybe I'm caught. Maybe I'm just like optimistic in a way where I shouldn't be. But I think Smash is still going to be great, right? Like what we mentioned, all those tournaments.
Mhm.
I'm still hyped for all of them, and I think that an important takeaway is that if you want to support Melee, you know, you there are avenues to do so. You can watch, you know, you can hey, talk about you know if you like Street Fighter, Combo Breakers coming up. There's like all these different ways to support the games, and I think it's a weird time because these games are very big, but it's very clear that at any point our little overlords could do whatever they want. So it's like you got to enjoy the game while it lasts.
Mhm.
We're kind of running on the end of the show. Let's move on. We've got some patron questions from you. We had some good ones, but we you know, I really loved having some conversations with you, so we went a little bit too long to have a bunch. So we'll
It's
just
all
read a
good.
few. I've
Mhm.
got one from Contra, from new patron Contra.
Oh,
So
it's all Connor. Is that
Connor
Connor?
asked, yeah, Connor asks, "What's your favorite tournament you've attended that gets overlooked, forgotten, or generally isn't talked about much?" So favorite overlooked tournament that you attended.
Wait, can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah. So, what's your favorite tournament you've attended that gets overlooked, forgotten, or generally isn't talked about much?
Favorite tournament. I don't know. So I feel like it's been so long since I've been to uh, a tournament. Trying to think.
You've been to a lot of tournaments over your life, though.
Overlooked. I can't think of one off the top of my head right now. Um, yeah.
Well, I mean, even just
Yeah.
like you know, Melee's rich history. Is there something that maybe isn't thought of that much nowadays? Like, even if it was big at the time, I think there's still stuff that kind of falls through the cracks.
Yeah, hold on. Is it cool? Can you guys give me 1 second?
Yeah.
This lady, I asked her about a CRT because I'm trying to buy CRTs, and she just fucking um is
All
spazzing
right,
on me.
next question.
Hold on.
Calm down, Edwin. He's buying a
No,
CRT.
yeah, no, I'm just
This
kidding.
is he's doing Melee work.
Fair enough.
And she just like read put the ad shitty. Then I was like, she's like having CRTs and VCRs for sale. And I was like, yeah, I'm not trying to like buy the VCRs. And then she just snapped, like, are you dumb? Is English your second language? And I told her, relax. And then I just blocked her.
Damn.
Fucking asshole.
What a mean thing to say to someone. Is English your second language? Like, what?
When she
No.
clearly like put on a shitty ad, fucking psycho.
Well, if
Um,
anyone's looking for both a CRT and a VCR, they know
did
where to
I?
look
How
now.
do you block? Oh yeah, I blocked her. Okay, good.
It's insane.
Okay, sorry. I like wanted to snap and like just call her a bunch of expletives, but I just didn't do that. I just told her to relax and blocked her. All right.
Overlooked tournament.
Yeah, yeah. Shit. Off the top of my head, uh, no, I can't remember. Um,
Sorry,
I'm like
Connor.
kind of pissed at what this lady did, so I'm like still in thought about that fucking idiot. But nah, I can't. Uh,
Well, maybe it just means that every tournament you went to got the praise it deserves.
It's a really good tournament. I mean, there's a lot. I'm just trying to think of one of as of recent. I haven't been to one recently. Does it have to be offline?
Could be whatever.
Damn, this feels bad because I feel like
Well,
I feel like a
maybe
dick.
we'll do the. We've got one more. Maybe we'll do the next question then. See if we
Okay.
got a
Yeah,
response after.
I'll
Okay.
I'll
Go
jump
ahead.
into the next question from Seal. So, what was the most surprising part of Bemi this year? Any results from players that surprised you?
Oh, well, shouts to Seal. I see you in the chat. I mean, Billy winning in the fashion he won was obviously a surprise. Um, how receptive people were to the interviews, I didn't think those would land. I thought people would just be like, hurry the fuck up, when's it gonna start? Like that. I thought that energy was gonna be a thing, but I realized a lot of people like content in between the gameplay. Like obviously they don't want to wait too long. And what I realized is having like content like 2 hours before the event, like an hour or so after, it like worked. It was received really well because you get all the gameplay, but when it's over, you still have stuff to watch. So yeah, that was I think that the interviews, like how they were received, really, I wasn't ready for that. I guess even though like I wanted to have a bunch of content ready, I was shocked at how many people liked the interviews.
I think they were great. We had someone specifically ask about the interviews, so like another patron question that we
Mhm.
just weren't able to really get to. So yeah, I mean, I think people really liked them. It's a good way. We talked about a lot of people just see these players, especially in the online era, as just like characters on the screen. So I think it's a good way to humanize people and humanize people. Even outside the tournament, I know that people who did not participate in the tournament also had interviews. So I think that's super cool. Just community
Mhm.
members in general.
Right, right. There was one interview, or there was one I forgot to put out, uh, and it was a segment like because one of the questions I asked everyone was what it was being black in America like for you, and it was a compilation of everyone's answer. Uh, I'll probably drop that on YouTube or something at some point, but yeah, I mean, I'm just glad people like the content. We wanted to do more, but it's just hard to get everyone together and then film it. But the fact that so many people like it, I think, is really a good thing. Something I'm gonna try to do next time. You know, make it
Of
more of a
course.
thing.
I think it was super cool, and if you're able to level it up from here, I think that'd be amazing because what you put forward was incredible. Overlooked tournament. You got an overlooked tournament?
Me?
Question.
Yeah,
Back
yeah,
to
yeah,
back to
yeah.
Connor's question.
My bad. I'm still snapping on that lady. I wanted to report her, dude, for being a fucking asshole. It was there's just like no reason to like snap. Like, dude, you got issues. You need help. You should not. No wonder you haven't sold those CRTs. Like, it's not that big of a deal. Yeah, overlooked tournament, man. I really can't think of one as a late
All good.
off the top of my head. Like, just ever.
Yeah.
Uh, like there's tournaments that were cool, but overlooked though.
We'll move on past it.
It's so hard. I feel
Can
like a
I
lot of
answer this?
yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
All right, so I can't. So obviously, this is not what Contra was looking for, but I have a pretty cool answer for this. I think one of the most overlooked, like really big tournaments ever, is a HTC Throwdown. I think there's so much to remember from that event. I think Drug Fox's run through losers, like him going up against the NorCal crowd, was pretty great. I thought Silent
Mhm.
Wolf's run to second was great. Or excuse me, third place. Leffen's just like total smackdown of Hungry Box was memorable.
Right.
Mango getting knocked out of
With the
the event.
glasses, Leffen with the glasses.
Yeah, Mango getting knocked out of the event early was crazy for the time. I think HGC Throwdown. I think they actually flew a bunch of players to the event as well. It was
Yeah,
just like a
yeah.
very like I think if you brought it up to someone, they might be tempted to remember it as like a relic of 2015, but it was actually pretty groundbreaking in a lot of ways, and a lot of like historic sets happened there. And I don't
Yeah.
Also, I
think that
believe still to this day the biggest one-day tournament in Melee history.
Oh, is it?
I could be wrong about that,
And I
but
got something about that tournament.
yeah.
I got the Plup
well,
one
you beat
there.
Plup, yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, one of
uh,
Melee Stats Dean,
and
one of the greatest
the
episodes of
the
all time.
the one lucky asset. But nah, that was a good tournament. So I mean, if we're doing ever, I guess I like I'm not yelling, like the
Mhm.
ones at Merritt College, like those type of events.
Mhm.
Those were cool. Obviously there's bias. I think an event that gets overlooked that I've never even been to is Tipped Off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a big series for a while. And it kind of that I think the last one was in what 2015. It was like it happened while the first Summit happened. It was the same
Right.
weekend.
The fire
Uh,
alarm set.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's definitely this thing where a lot of people who joined Melee after 2016 or after whatever, it kind of missed the biggest time of Melee. But for I think you're right. For a long time, it was important. Usually we don't do a roundtable for the questions, but I do want to say something that I've never been to, but I want to give you a shout out. I don't know how involved you were, but I'm pretty sure you were involved. I don't know if people know. I help like compile the photos for MPGR, so I'm always going through all these like photo albums for Smash events.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going through one recently to try to find the perfect picture for when we put the announcement on Twitter and for the thumbnail. So I was trying to look for a good picture of you, and I stumbled upon an album that didn't have you at all, but I think you were at was the Wombo Combo 10th anniversary. That was
Oh yeah.
something. Just looking through the pictures, that's something where if you don't ask a lot of people, I don't think they know. Just looking through the pictures looks like such a fun event to be at. One,
Yeah.
it was like Ludwig and Slime were commentating. Toph was there.
Yeah.
They had good players who were there, but also
That bro, I
they
feel like our shit gets super overlooked. At least
all the
in that back
pizza. There was
then.
pizza and cake, dude. I looked
Yeah.
at this and I was like, I want to go to this event. This is
Yeah.
such a
Bro, we
The
sick
had
event.
QPU SFAT grand finals was so cool.
we
Also
had we had 70 setups
That's
for that
insane.
tournament.
wild.
Yeah. But yeah, it was that was fun. That was fun. It was kind of weird cuz like Mango did some weird stream shit with Scar after. Still, that just automatically overlooked the event. No knock to that, but it was just like it kind of just like was weird. And then fucking what was the next thing that oh, Ultimate had came out that weekend. That Friday Ultimate came out. So it was just like a bunch of things that a lot of people weren't really paying attention. So, but I mean, the people at the event had fun. And that's all that matters. Over 200 people went. That was cool. I feel like I had an innovation there that none of the TLs use that I did there, and it worked out well. It was like an implementation of flags. Can I explain to you guys this, by the way?
Yeah,
I feel like
please.
every major should do this. All right, so when you go to a big ass tournament, you're kind of just like lost in the void of where your pool is. You'll see some shitty like letter number sign A1, A2, A3, right? Instead of that, I thought that was fucking stupid, right? Because most people don't pay attention. So I was like, yo, let's make it obvious. Try to make it like idiot proof, right? No knock to anyone, but it's just easier, right? So what we did had a set of colored wristbands, right? So depending on what pool you are, you got a certain color. There were flags of that color on each pool. So if you were in wave A, it was red, right? You were in the red wave. Check your wristband. You look up, see a big ass red flag, and then you go there, and that's where your setup was. And that's what we did for that tournament. And I thought it went well because I only got that question one time out of like 200 people. And once I told them to check their wrist, they're like, "Oh yeah," and then yeah. So yeah, I feel like majors should do shit like that more, but that's just
Take
me.
notes, majors. I
Get
like this
on it.
idea. I think it's great.
Yeah, it sounds good. Yeah, that was you know what? I like that little patron question because we got to do a fun little roundtable thing. We don't usually do that for patron questions. What we do a roundtable thing for, we're running down one of the last segments of our show. we go around and we talk about something that we haven't done, or something outside of Melee that we've been doing recently, because I think part of devoting so much time to Melee is that a lot of times people see us as just people in Melee, and they don't really see
Mhm.
us as people. um Although, yeah, I do think that events like Bemi and stuff show that, there's more to Melee, or there's more to Melee players than Melee. But
Oh yeah.
we have a little officially untitled segment that we like to call Touching Grass, and it's basically going through stuff that's been going on in our lives recently. So I'll go first. I'll give you guys some time to think. Um, the thing that I want to say is something that I've used before recently, and that is the Philadelphia 76ers. And the reason why this is different is because now we have James Harden. And watching that guy play, obviously, he's known as one of the greatest players who's currently playing, one top 30, 40 players of all time, whatever you want to call it. Watching him play with the offense that I've been watching for however long is just amazing. But I've used this before. I've used 76ers before, so I will not say that this week. Instead, I will say something that I've been doing recently is I've been going to live concerts. Live music has been coming back. I bought like a ton of tickets to stuff last year, last like winter. Um, like December, November 2021, for events in the future, and they just kind of got like pushed back or were already scheduled. And I went to one Thursday and one Saturday, and I've got one coming up next week. And it's amazing. I thought they were great. One of the fun things about an area like Philly is that I think that a lot of the people are pretty. Yeah, I don't know. I think every city says this, but I do like the crowds that we have there. I've got a friend from New York who happened to visit one of those days, and he bought a ticket, and he said that the crowds in New York are completely different. They're just like dead compared to what we have here. So it was super fun. I was able to be front row. I got there however early, like not even that early, and was able to like just get front row at both of the concerts that I went to. So I thought that was amazing. I might as well shout out the artists that I saw. All women based artists, which was super cool too. I do forget the name of the opening act of the one, so unfortunately I don't remember. But on Thursday, I saw the Beths, which is a band from New Zealand. Great power pop band from there. If you just like good guitar hook songs, like that's a great one. And then I saw a band that I think was on like the Euphoria soundtrack, I think. But they're called Pom Pom Squad. They opened for a band called Illuminati Hotties, which is just this like awesome energy filled band that like did all these different kinds of music. It's just like, punk rock one song, and the next one was like a ballad. It was The audience was captivated the entire time. So that's what I've been doing. I've been going to those shows, and then I think by the time we have the next episode, I will have been to a show for one of my favorite bands, which is the Microphones, which is probably going to be like an acoustic heavy set. But I've been like pretty excited that live music has returned, and just appreciated it, because like we've had it taken away, and then during Omicron we had it taken away again. So happy to have that, and then very soon after that we'll be going to events, but to Smash events. But obviously, Smash events have no place in touching grass. Edwin, what have you been up to?
Uh, just same as usual. I've been reading. I'm in the middle of reading a book, "How Europe Underdeveloped Africa" by Walter Rodney, which is pretty interesting. I mean, if you heard me talk about like any of the stuff I read, I typically like reading like 20th century like Cold War books, but typically from like the perspective of the quote unquote like third world, like the
I think
non-aligned
last
movement.
time Brandon was on, yours was Central American countries, right?
Yeah, I just
It was
love I love internationalism. I love learning about what's going on in other countries, especially like Latin America, like Southeast Asia and like Africa in particular, I think are like massive parts of the world with a lot of like analogous situations to or a lot more analogous situations to like North American politics than we necessarily like associate. Like a lot of people have a very like Eurocentric vision of the world or like American centric vision of the world, so I think it's just like cool to read up on the global south and stuff. And I still have a lot more to learn about that. But the book so far I'm reading is pretty interesting. That's one thing I'm doing. Another thing I've picked up a lot in the last like 2 weeks is cooking a lot more. So that's been pretty fun. Just it's a fun little hobby that you can kind of like see you can see like what kind of progress you make based on the quality of meal that you have. Like, it's just a good life skill. I've been pretty happy with my vegetable chopping skills.
Uh,
Uh, no, it sounds really
you
silly,
do the
but
thing where you're supposed to curl your fingers inward. So if you know that, right?
the curl your fingers inward.
Yeah, if you're holding a vegetable, you're not supposed to hold a vegetable like
Oh
this.
yeah, yeah. So you
Because
don't.
Yeah,
if you
yeah,
cut,
yeah,
you
of
hit your
course.
fingers. Yeah,
Yeah,
do you do
Yeah,
yeah.
of
that?
course. Yeah, I
Okay.
do
Well,
that.
you acted like you were surprised. So.
Well, I wasn't sure what you meant because that's just how I like normally do
Oh,
it.
okay. You're just like a natural at this.
Yeah, I guess. No, but that's been really fun. I've been doing it with my spouse for a bit. Last week we made a Cajun shrimp pasta. A bit like the week before that, we made just kind of like some lemon salmon thing with it with just roasted Brussels sprouts and green beans. So this week I'm gonna try to make a Cajun salmon with some Cajun seasoned home fries and broccoli and everything. So I'm really
Right.
excited. It's been fun. It's a good hobby to pick up.
Sounds sick. Brandon, what's been going on with you? I know you just came off
Uh,
of an event, and I know that like event mode, there's not much to do other than that. But anything that's been going on, if you want to give a shout out to.
um. Well, I'm trying to report this girl for being an asshole. Yeah, I'm not like over it. Dude, she
Oh
gets
my
mad at me for
god.
it. She says I'm asking her a stupid question. This fucking idiot literally didn't put that you can buy things separate in the ad. So she has like 5 VCRs and 2 CRTs. I'm like, yo, I just want the CRTs. I don't care about the VCRs. There's nothing in this ad that states that you can buy separate or as a whole. And she just snapped on me for no reason. And I'm like, what the fuck? So I was like, all right, um, I told her relax and have a good night. And I almost want to unblock her to tell her, hey, dumbass, there's nothing in here that says that you can buy them separately or not. Because there isn't. I read the ad like 3 times. And yeah, there's nothing in here that says that. It's just like,
Let's bring
well,
her on stream. That's
yeah.
it.
And then
She's the next guest.
uh yeah, I just want to report her for being a fucking asshole. It was just hella unnecessary, that's all. And so hold on, let me
This may be one of my favorite entries for this entire segment.
I
This,
reported her. I
this is
reported
up
her.
there with Blur saying he's really into ruins.
No, I reported her because it's just like, dude, I really want to say just be a real asshole about it, but I'm just not. Well, I already called her out a name, but well, fuck her. I hope she sees this. Anyway, what's what's going on outside of Melee? It's weird because I don't talk about like that with people. Once you get that on my bad side, I fuck you. I don't care. Um, how pretty much what's been going on outside of me, like um having psychos spaz on me on Facebook. I've been trying to get CRTs for this event that we've been running, and it's called the Town Throwdown. Um, I'll link the picture in the Discord because I don't know. I don't know if you guys can pull it up, but I'll just post it in here
We'll
anyway.
see if our technical wizard can do it. Yeah, so let's talk
Yeah.
about this. This is is this the first of a series that we're seeing?
Yeah. So, long story short, when the pandemic happened, all our tournaments, like the May venue, got closed down. Um, the other tournament was ESA, like Wednesday Night Fights, that got shut down. All of Oakland's tournaments got shut down. NorCal has Nathan Sandwich has a tournament called Bay Area Rumble, but it's out in Concord, which is probably like 30-40 minutes out. And then there's San Jose tournament that Javi does. Shouts to Javi. Shouts to Nick to both of them. Javi does a tournament called I think it's Guild House Fighters in San Jose at the Guild House bar or whatever, or the Guild House Esports place. And that's about like another 40 minutes to an hour, give or take, from here, right? And since then, we haven't had anything. The city of Oakland, San Francisco too. Really, there's been nothing. And this is like the first tournament within like Oakland area that is has been a thing, and we're flying out. Let me name the names if you guys don't mind. Kadoran's coming out. Captain. Oh, thank you for putting that up there. I appreciate that. Kadoran's coming out. Captain Face Roll's coming out. Johnny, Magi, Spark, and Eddie Mexico are gonna come out for this event. That's why it's titled the SoCal Invasion. Shroom is gonna come. We're trying to get NorCal. SFAT's like a maybe, but I need to talk to more people. I was gonna talk to Rocky. Azel said he'd come, so I'm just trying to get everybody in. Mainly it was just like a West Coast major thing. That's what I wanted it to be for like the grand opening. Magi just wanted to come along board because I get like Beast Coast, right? So shouts to Magi. I think it's gonna be like the first times in a while that all like me, Johnny, Magi are all in one place.
Oh, the Beast Coast.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
Beast Coast. That's cool.
yeah. So, uh, yeah, man, it's just something to bring back for city of Oakland. If you guys are wondering why it's called the Town Throwdown, uh, San Francisco is usually referred to as a city, and Oakland's usually referred to as a town. A good example is if you watch those 2018 Warriors games, they would all wear the town jerseys with the tree on it. Like that's like the same. That's like the Oakland logo for the city. It's like on every street sign. So it's just something that's indicative for Oakland. I don't know. I feel like it was just wanted to bring back a bi-weekly for the town, and have a bunch of people out. Might be collabing with some future tournaments. Not sure yet. I haven't. This will be my first offline tournament since the pandemic. I might have did a made in the in like January of 2020, but for the most part, I haven't really ran any tournaments offline in a while. People thought I started hosting tournaments online, but I was doing it offline like 3 years before the pandemic happened. But anyway, basically, this is like, our way of coming back in the scene. And speaking of to add more to this, it's at New Parkway Theater. Shouts to New Parkway Theater. It's a movie theater. And they got this lobby. They got a mezzanine where the local is going to take place, and then two movie theater rooms, right? And basically, for this bigger one, we're going to have the mezzanine, the lobby, and one of the theaters, and then at the end, we're going to play top 8 in the movie theater. And like,
Oh, that's so sick.
yeah, and like everybody, and like this type of movie theater has like couches and chairs, and it's like a lounge type of theater. It's like it's not like your typical like AMC type of, whatever. It's not like that. But pretty much, yeah, man. Like you could just grab a seat, and then they're gonna, top 8 will be played in the movie theater, and it's just gonna be.
This makes me want to go, and this is less than 2 weeks away, and I'm on the other side of the country.
Bro, if you want to,
time for a road trip, man.
Yo, by all means, Edwin, I would love for you to come out. I get why you wouldn't, but hell yeah, man. If you came, that'd be cool. I think Bobak might come, like might have some Genesis people out. Trying to crack over 100 entrants. I don't know if we can. We already got like 15 or so, 14. But yeah, man. That's pretty much it. Oh yeah, did I say Joey was coming too? Lucky, yeah, Lucky's also.
Oh, that's sick.
Yeah, so
Nice.
it's gonna be a good event, and because of this event, I was looking for CRTs on Facebook. For the most part, everybody was cool. I went to Facebook Marketplace,
Except for one specific person,
one fucking asshole. So yeah, outside of that, everybody's been, I've just been trying to get some CRTs because, I mean, you have people bring them, but we're trying to get something more stable. So, but yeah, that's what I've been working on lately. I've been, ever since, even during bemi and before bemi, I was working on this event, and we got a Beast Coast sponsor. We got Slime and Lud to help sponsor the event.
Oh, that's so sick.
And so
Nice.
we're just trying to get something back for NorCal. I know people think NorCal and just, well, you got Genesis, right? But Genesis is a byproduct of like this type of shit, right? Like Genesis wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for this type of stuff. And obviously Genesis, like shouts to Sheridan and Bob back there in full support of the event. And yeah, man, we're just trying to get, something back, something regular back for Oakland. And my long-term goal with this is to just have just to open with this big tournament. And then from there, it's just like normal bi-weekly. It's kind of like Vertigo or something like that.
Mhm.
And then I'd say like every 3-4 months or so, we do this again. So it's just like, 4 big events throughout the year. So more people come, the merrier. It would be great. We got COVID protocols all on deck. You got to get vax, boosted, mask, all that stuff. Got sanitizers. So it's not like we're going in there crazy, but we definitely trying to get people, because if we could get people, we could justify getting both theaters, which would be fucking crazy. And we could do like a lot more. So, Edwin, if you got time or money, by all means, my friend.
Yeah,
Let me,
so
yeah,
Brandon,
yeah.
this all sounds amazing. I'm sure there's so much more to learn, to see, to experience at this event. So, if after the show, the people watching this or anyone listening want to follow more about this event, general North Cal melee shenanigans, or whatever
Mhm.
you're doing, where can they follow? Where can they follow it?
Okay, so official NorCal Melee. If you're trying to find stuff that's just like NorCal oriented, I just suggest that more so. NorCal Melee has a Twitter. Nathan, I think, runs that, but I think what's better is the Facebook channel or the Discord. There's a NorCal Melee Discord. Let me see if I could put the link in here. I gotta find it somewhere. I don't know. I'm in so many fucking Discords.
What about if
Um,
people want to follow you? Where can they do
Yeah,
so?
you specifically. We're coming up near the
okay,
end of the show.
okay, yeah. For me, follow me at Twitter /YUNGWAFF. It's pretty much where I be at. I don't got Instagram. Uh, Uh, and yeah, that's pretty much where you can find me. Twitch.tv/the Waffle77. It's usually where I also be at. If you want updates for that, just really follow my Twitter. That's really where I be tweeting. Like I'm just pretty much like a fucking walking ad at this point, and just like, announce events coming up and shit like that. But yeah, should anybody want to be involved, just let me know. Um, if you got the plug on some small CRTs, let me know. And you're not
Without
an asshole.
VCRs, no
Yeah,
VCRs.
and you're not a fucking psycho, let me know. Um uh that shit really triggered me. I don't know. But yeah, that's usually where I'd be at. I don't really do much or tweet much outside of tournaments. So if you guys want to come, by all means, just let me know. If you live in the area, it's across the street from KP Asian Market, where First Friday is. If you live in Oakland, you know where that is. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much where they can follow me. Sorry if that was a long answer too.
Oh, it was good. I think this is going to be a super sick tournament. The return of all these majors, of course, we talked about, but the return of regionals and locals is something that I think is kind of stuff that we have not seen return to the same amount. So having an entrance into that in one of Smash's greatest regions, I think, is amazing. And I'm glad that you were able to share so much about it, and looking forward to it. Edwin's not going. I don't know why he's acting like he is, but we'll see. Well, hopefully we'll make it out to Genesis, and maybe that'll be our little NorCal trip. But
Yeah.
yeah, if you want to follow us, you can follow us on Twitter at Melee Stats Pod. That's where we're gonna have our results tweets now with emojis. uh, and you can follow us there, and we'll also be posting links to our MeleeStats.co articles, such as Monday Morning Marth and When's Melee. You can see us over on YouTube. We have our long form content at Melee Stats YouTube channel, and then the Melee Stats archive is where you're going to get some bonus stuff, but mainly episodes of this. So if you have missed Waiting for Game Live, you can catch it over there or on your podcast app of choice. If you want to catch them live as they come out, twitch.tv/melee stats. And if you just love everything we're doing and want to support us, patreon.com/melee stats. Brandon.
Hey, I have a question. Is it cool if I ask one question, or is it you guys
Sure.
stretch your time? I wanted to ask you, March 10th, do you think Ben Simmons plays?
I don't think Ben Simmons is playing, man.
Yeah, I agree. I was just curious. That's all. I don't think he's playing.
I was on the Nets subreddit because they are currently going through the same stuff that all the Philly fans did. They're looking at videos of him like shooting 3-foot baskets in an empty gym, and they're like, "He's back, baby." So, but even the Nets subreddit, they're like, "He's not coming back for March 10th." They're making jokes. He said his back hurts. Like Steve Nash just said today that he's literally not even doing 5-on-5s. And then
Damn.
even the Nets fans are like, "Yeah, he might come back. His back might stop hurting on March 11th." So no, I don't think he's gonna play.
You think he'll show up though? You think he'll even go to the arena?
He's been going to the games, and then everyone's like, he loves his team so much. I forget who it was. I think it was Claxton or someone got like fouled, and they fell to the ground, and he like got off the bench and like lifted them up. And then there's all these things about like how he's such a great teammate. Whatever. I'm sure we'll talk about this at some point.
Yeah,
But I think we've had a good conversation here today. We
for
were
sure.
able to go through a lot, and I appreciate you coming on, especially right after you run such a big event.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
no, thanks so much. I think this is really an enlightening conversation, and I think that like we were able to check off so many boxes, talking about Nintendo, talking about your event, talking about obviously like the cool players we saw, but also what it means. I'm really happy with how this episode went, and I think that like you know, it's all comes down to you like shining a light on all these things. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you guys for having me. It's truly appreciated. Edwin, you guys are goated, and yeah, JD2 behind the camera. Everybody, just thank you.
Of course, yeah. No, thank you. And thanks to the audience for tuning in. I really appreciate you all for watching. And I want to reiterate that we are moving to a bi-weekly schedule, so we're not going to be around next week, but we'll be back to talk about Smash Camp. I'm really excited for that one. So we'll be able to recap that, and maybe we'll do an episode after to talk about what happened. But yeah, thanks for watching, everyone. You can catch us then. Peace.
See you guys.